Hey everybody, this is Cody Knight 22 here, and welcome to Cody Talks Fanfiction episode 13. I just want to say ahead of time, you can probably hear my fan in the background. Ideally, I'll be able to remove it by eliminating background noise, but you can probably hear it still. I want to apologize for that. It's like 100 degrees in Arizona right now. It's fucking hot as hell, and my room gets really, really warm. So the fan has to stay. The other thing that I do want to say ahead of time is if you have any questions for Elfin Lied, sorry, fucked up there. I will be conducting that interview 2 days post release of this video, and so if you have any questions, just drop by, leave them somewhere that I can see them, preferably, and organize them neatly. So you know that's covers that. That's all I really got to do there. However, do want to get into this week's episode because this is very important towards the Elfin Lied interview. Who here remembers episode 7? Better question, who here knows what the hell I'm talking about when I say episode 7? That's right, nobody, even I had to look it up. Episode 7 was the Strong Starts episode of Cody Talks Fanfiction, where I covered the first addition to stories that became a series. This week is going to basically be a continuation of that. This is going to be the Stellar Sequels episode. Yes, sticking along with the two S's idea. So this is just going to be me. I recorded this once before. My inventory is a little bit different now. Recorded this once before. Kind of fucked up in a couple areas, so I did have to wind up scrapping it eventually. Aw, you little fucks. How'd you get out? Whatever. So I did have to scrap it, restart, whatever. I've done it before. I'll do it as many times as I have to, just as long as I don't have to do it too many more times. So this is just going to basically be the sequels to every story that I covered in part 1 in the exact same order for continuity. It's a good word. Well, but that's really kind of it. I just wanted to do this, and I've wanted to do this for a while now. So finally gonna do it. So let's get right into it. Well, not really right into it. I kind of rambled on a little bit longer than I intended to, but you know, what's done is done. I'm gonna keep rambling. Don't ask me. I don't know what's wrong with me. I don't. I'm so sorry to everybody. But let's get going with the first story, and it is going to be Bloodstained Chessboard 2: Waging War by GateMasterGreen.
Sequel to Bloodstained Chessboard. Tyson has left with his kind, but his allies remain. Ruby, along with her lovers, Blake and Weiss, must find them and recruit them. Pierre joins them to stay close to Yang, and chaos ensues. Still growing romance and a pregnant Rice. What else could happen? Rice? I think I just said Rice. I meant Weiss. That was the big plot point from the last time that I couldn't say. Weiss got pregnant. Total prego. And it was done through black magic, I think, if I remember correctly. I don't know if I remember correctly. So that's the plot to this story. Tyson Greywall was an original character that did not get introduced for a good portion of the story, actually, and then was introduced, and now he's gone. So R.I.P. in peace. He didn't die, but whatever. And now they're trying to get, I guess, his allies, people that were his allies, and they're trying to recruit them for the cause at Beacon against everybody else. And this story isn't incredibly long so far. In fact, out of all the sequels, this is by far the shortest one. It has yet to really kind of take off and get into the thick of things. Though I will say, I'll say that for later. But I really enjoy the story, and the great thing about fan fiction that really kind of makes it different from normal writing is that a lot of times people bitch about the sequels not being as good as the originals, and more often than not, that is justified bitching, because sequels can suck a lot. But in this instance, that is actually not the case. In this instance, the sequels are mostly better than the originals, just because we're all learning authors here. None of us are pro. And, you know, just kind of getting that opportunity to improve, you see the growth. And it's a lot. This is one of my favorite things. So all these sequels are going to be rated higher than the originals, assuming I remember the original's rating. That's no guarantee. But this story had a really good, or had a really healthy growth element to it from from the first to this one. The chapters improved in length, or they increased in length. I don't know why I said improved. They increased in length, which actually allows for more character development as opposed to what we had before this, which was some character development, not much. But I'm not complaining too much about it. I think that it was a fair amount, and number one, enough to make you feel for the characters, or at least his portrayal of the characters. But it wasn't enough to really make it that great of character development. But this time we're finally getting a chance to have the characters develop, to have the relationships develop a little bit more. And everything is kind of coming together now. And I really am enjoying that fact. It takes so long for most things, or it took so long in book one for everything to kind of really come together, for it to be less so Ruby Blake, Ruby Weiss, and more so involving with Weiss Blake, because it is a three-way relationship. It is a three-way relationship. I don't believe, if I remember correctly, and I am saying if I remember correctly, there is not a lemon yet in part 2, and there were a couple in part 1. And without the lemon, it's actually allowing for other character growth. So I really do appreciate that. So I think that, honestly, the biggest improvement from 1 to 2 was growth. The character growth so far has been a lot better in part 2. I like the way that the relationships are playing out. All of them. If I'm trying to remember correctly, it is Nora and Ren and Velvet and Jean, which is somewhat popular. Along with Pyrrha and Yang are the other relationships. I hope that I'm getting all of those correct. And I really am enjoying all of them. Pyrrha and Yang is also growing fairly healthily. The plot line to this one is good. I do like the fact that it's kind of taking on a plot role a little bit earlier on rather than later on, like it did last time. There's still equal amounts of just kind of goofiness, which I really do enjoy. It's kind of his signature, and I think that it does. I think that it does improve the story, just the goofiness to it. I think that, you know, for what it is, it really does do well in that. I also gotta say that I think that the best character just got introduced, because the last time that I did an episode of Cody Talks Fanfiction, he said that he was gonna write me a character. I thought he was. I'll be honest. I thought he was kidding. Turns out he's not kidding. I actually now am a character. I now have a character, Cody 22, the Energy Knight. So I'm just going to go ahead and say best character in the show. Everybody else can just go home. Or best character in the story. Everybody else can just go home now. You know, kidding aside, I think it's a really well done. Issues that I have with this story are more things that I think are coming up in the sooner, and kind of the lack of certain things being shown. So far, we have yet to really. So it's very early on in the story. There's not a ton that has gotten the opportunity to occur yet. There's, for the most part, it's kind of still in that early stages of a story. It's not a bad thing, but there's a lot missing from it right now. Like, there is real emotional conflict has yet to become apparent in any kind of a way. That block's just hanging out. Real emotional conflict has yet to become apparent in any way. And that's kind of makes it, oh wait, was that lava? Oh Jesus Christ. And that has kind of takes away from where the story is right now. You know, I want to have that emotional burden come in. Ideally, as Weiss gets later on into pregnancy and the conflicts around them get a little bit more heated, I can see that becoming a bigger issue. And I'm not going to, this is going to sound incredibly biased, but I'm curious to see as to where Cody 22 fits in, just because he doesn't so far, it's only been in one chapter. He has a brief little cameo, but you know, he doesn't appear to have to fit in with everybody else, with all the other original characters. So I'm curious to see. I trust GateMasterGreen to make him fit in, but I'm a little bit concerned. And on that trend of original characters, and this is my biggest fear, a lot of them are being added into this story. A lot of them, and including some characters from the cast that really kind of become original characters, as we know almost nothing about them. But you know, with I'm concerned because there's a lot of them there, and I feel as though, and I, speaking from experience on this one, unfortunately, too many original characters can really fuck up a story. So I'm concerned there. So just, you know, I hope, this is a very, very not so subtle, secretive message to you. I hope that you don't overdo it on the original characters, and that this is either the cap or damn near the cap. So, you know, it's just a lot of things early on right now are mostly fears rather than actual concerns. But you know, I gotta roll with what I gotta roll with. I think that, though, so far this is a really good story. I think that it can continue on this kind of upwards trend from the prior thing, and it could improve a lot. But, you know, I'm kind of nervous about some things, and it's keeping me from going higher than this. So at the end of the day, I will say 8.5. And I believe last time I gave it an 8. If I did not, then whoops. But 8.5. I think that the character growth is really great so far. Questions about it moving forward and a lack of some things are kind of keeping it right at where it is at 8.5. And that's going to conclude my discussion on Bloodstained Chessboard Part 2. And I'm going to apologize briefly, actually, because an unfortunate thing with me is that I have random urges to just suddenly go to the bathroom. Got one about partway through that. Got through the thing, though, but now I will be taking my lead. So in the meantime, enjoy this new screen that I have.
Don't go chasing waterfalls. Please stick to the rivers and the lakes that you're used to.
Okay, I'm back. So keeping along, I wanted to do everything in the same order as I did do it last time. So the next story is going to be Melting Vale by Elfenlied 1012 or 1012.
Now that Ruby and Weiss are together, spring has come. Although dating, issues Weiss, both from her station and the White Fang, stir in the background. While will the White Rose stay together long enough to see summer? Snowy Vale continues in the standalone sequel, Melting Vale, part of the Vale series.
Elfenlied, hi, I'm going to talk to you, technically right now as it stands 3 days. No lies, I'm recording this true story. But, you know, as far as the audience is concerned, 2 days, so hi. We'll chat on Skype a little bit. Yeah, so this is going to be Melting Vale. And I did say all these had improvements, but there was really 2 stories that kind of stood out in terms of improvements. My apologies to GateMasterGreen, and this is definitely one of them. I'm not doing recommendation of the video again. I'm doing most improved. You know, I'm gonna give out the most improved award because I think it's a cute award, and you know, not just for 5-year-olds. I think I actually think it's a very worthwhile award, but. This story really stood out as far as improvement goes to me because you had Snowy Vale, and one of my biggest complaints with Snowy Vale was that something felt missing from it. I can't tell you what. I can't tell you why, but something felt missing. It felt as though it was incomplete, and that not everything was there. This took care of that. Without a doubt, this took care of that. Whatever was missing before is definitely not missing now. Melting Vale is phenomenal. Where, you know, spoiler alert, at the end of towards the end of Snowy Vale, Ruby and Weiss actually do get together. Believe it or not, a White Rose story where they get together. And now this one was kind of addressing some conflicts and concerns that Weiss had in the prior story. And it's just, oh my god, it's so good. I have this one right now in my top 5 in terms of stories that I've read. Albeit they're technically top 7. Would that? Yeah, that'd be how that math worked out. Technically top 7 because I can't decide at 5. But this is just emotional conflict in this one. I don't think that there's enough emotional conflict because, you know, they only is some every damn chapter. Every damn chapter there's emotional conflict in it, and it's great. More often than not, it is for different reasons, though, you know, similar ideas, different reasons, and it just keeps, it keeps mixing it up. It's very powerful. Weiss's father comes into play and boy, what a jackass. And, you know, it's just, and he just becomes this character that you just hate and you despise, and you cannot find a shred of you that actually likes this guy. And I think that's what Elfin was shooting for. And, you know, but then with, you have carrying on, you have just this great plot line that's also born from it that puts it, I know that you and I disagree about this, that puts it out of fluff in my mind. And I'm saying you and I disagree with it because you oftentimes you have the literary definition of fluff, so fuck you for that. But I'm talking to Elfin, by the way, talking to Elfin inside of the video. But you just have like this great thing and it puts it outside of where I consider fluff in my mind, and it kind of put it into a different realm of just being this great romance story where, you know, it doesn't look promising right now. There's just nothing looks promising, and it looks as though times are going to become very, very hard for Ruby and Weiss, and it's going to become even harder overall on the group, for reasons that I cannot get into, as there's a couple big things that happen towards the end of the first act that I cannot get into due to the fact that it would be considered a spoiler. But hot damn, it is just so phenomenal. And it's, well, I mean, part one, I really liked the way that the characters interacted with each other. That was one of my favorite parts. That was one of my favorite parts, was the way that they interacted with each other, and that hasn't changed. The way that the characters interact with each other has not really changed. No, it has changed a fair amount because they are together now. Ruby and Weiss are together now, but it's still handled quite well. I think that the dynamic is kind of like what I want the White Rose dynamic to be like with Ruby and Weiss. It's just one of my, you know, it's just the dynamic to that relationship is so great. And that hasn't really changed a whole lot. I do also really, you know, to me it all just kind of boils down to the emotional conflict. The fact that the emotional conflict is there really so strongly in this story, I think sets it apart from a lot of other stories, especially a lot of other romance stories, including my own, where I don't include jack shit as far as emotional conflict goes. Honestly, I leave it be because I'm lazy. But this story has so much like emotional conflict that I am just impressed. I'm enamored by what was able to be done here. I do want to move away from this though. First of all, I want to move away from emotional conflict, period, because I'm talking an awful lot about it, but it's just so good. Anybody remember my review for October Storm? I drabbled on about that story for about 20 minutes. I might be able to get away with it as far as emotional conflict goes, but moving on to other things, the other side of this, what do I want to see improved from this story? There's not a ton that I can pick on, given the fact that my biggest complaint with Snowy Vale was missing, was incomplete. I can't really, you know, I don't have as much to pick on here, but I do have one kind of major point, and that is that a major plot point that I can't say was revealed recently. In the story later on, something huge happened, and it did involve Weiss's father, and it felt neat. It felt a little neat to me, and I felt as though it shouldn't be as neat as it was. I felt as though it should be a little bit messier, a little bit more struggle towards it. But to each their own, I guess. And another to each their own thing is that Weiss's father, the way that he's portrayed is, I think it's phenomenal for the most part. You know, he is just complete jackass, self-absorbed, you know, just all these other things. But my problem with him is the fact that he says things that it just doesn't feel like he means. And I know that's probably intention, and I know that the way that I said it makes it sound like it was most likely intentional. But bear with me here. He claims to be trying to be a loving and caring father, and I get, you know, loving and caring father, not actually a loving and caring father. Like there's that, but it's just so estranged from what should happen, I guess is the way that I'm trying to phrase it. He is too far gone in one direction. And this is personal preference. Honestly, this is what it boils down to. You could be absolutely fine with the way that he is portrayed. It's 100% personal preference, but honestly, he is just too much. I think he feels like he is just too much of a jackass, and there's nothing about him that is saving him as far as a character goes. And I want there to be something there. I want there to be some kind of a hope, because it would make more sense than just this empty character that you have there that is there solely to play the role of villain, but he is family. And family is very important to me. It's a very important thing. And I feel as though that there should be something there to kind of save him a little bit. Not completely, but, you know, just kind of make him better, more tolerable. And there isn't. And once again, that's personal preference. You could disagree completely. You could think that he's fine. You could think that he's great. He's the best part about that story, and he's one of my favorite parts about that story. But honestly, he's just too much. It's a bit much, I guess. And some parts of the story actually became hard to read. But it became hard to read in the absolute best way possible. It became hard to read because I was just so involved with hating Weiss's dad. Once again, I'd like a little bit there. So at the end of the day, though, I believe I gave Snowy Vale a 9. I'm gonna have to put this in the realm of a couple other stories, and I'm gonna have to say 9.5. This was fucking phenomenal. I think it was great, and you know, I talked a little bit about my one only true complaint about this story, but otherwise, phenomenal job. So I'm gonna be moving on from that story now. I'll be interviewing Elf and Liad once again. Please do leave any questions anywhere. You know, just get them out there. We're gonna be moving on to the story that by far takes home most improved. It's not even funny how not close this is. Redemption, Book 2 of the Rending Trilogy, not the Rendering Trilogy like I thought it was for a very long time. Oh, by Kentethalion. I don't want to fuck up and forget to say the name of the author again.
Ever since the tragedy of the siege of Beacon, Yang has fallen apart, isolating herself from her former life. Whenever Blake appears with information related to the siege, though, Yang's world begins to move again. Old friends resurface, and a dark plot that threatens the very existence of Remnant is uncovered as Yang tries to stitch herself back together, piece by piece.
Ruin, Book 1. You can tell that story was rushed. The beginning was straight into everything. The middle was the only time that you had to actually give a damn about the characters, but you couldn't because you simply didn't know enough about them in this particular story. The ending should have been heartbreaking. Ruby Rose died. I didn't feel as though it was heartbreaking because of the way that the rest of the story had been. It was just like, okay, somebody is dead. And Pyrrha got killed as well, but she came back. This story, when my biggest issue with the first was that it just felt incomplete, or not incomplete, it felt rushed, and there wasn't enough time to love these characters, and there was just too much happening. It was a fun action story, but nothing else. This story settles those qualms. It is phenomenal. It truly is phenomenal. I'm just setting up. I forgot to reset the nether. I'm setting up, but I'm going to continue talking about the story. But this story, it improves on that. It takes what happened before and it makes it a lot better. And with what happened, there should have been more emotional conflict. There should have been more of just these things boiling up inside. You're in the middle of a siege, and it just wasn't there. And it made me really not like the story that much. But this is so different. I mean, I just cannot emphasize how much I absolutely adore this story. and it takes home most improved. When you read this story, the beginning is involving Yang, and it's great. Yang is broken. Yang is just so broken, and it makes sense. Her little sister died. Her baby sister's dead, and Yang is just shattered by this. Is that she just wants RWBY back, and she wishes that she was back, and she just has one goal, and that is revenge. She's already killed Cinder in very, very gruesome fashion, might I add, and now she's going after Torchwick. And Blake comes to Yang and says, we have located where Torchwick is. And Yang is just like, I'm going to kill him. And that just becomes her sole mission, her sole goal. I'm going to kill him. And, just kind of this shadow of what Yang used to be chases after. And it's done so brilliantly. Is that there's emotional conflict is kind of, I guess, the other theme for this one, where there hasn't been any so far in Bloodstained Chessboard 2. There was a lot of it in Melting Vale. Go me, I forgot the name of the story. But this story probably has the most, where it's a mix of Bumblebee love, where both Yang and Blake clearly love each other. And, Blake obviously wouldn't have gone through that much trouble to get Yang if she didn't. Bumblebee love and just being torn apart and hatred for each other for what they've become, where Yang just wants no affiliation with Beacon anymore because she thinks that Beacon is the reason that RWBY is dead, and Osmond is as well. And it's such a great balance of it. It's just they're at each other's throats, or they're just trying, or Blake is just doing everything in her power to help Yang. And I just cannot believe what was accomplished. In this story, just really from part 1 to part 2, once again, the biggest improvement was that there's so much more there now. It's the fact that there just wasn't enough there before, and now there is. There's a ton here. Another pro, though, to this story is that it is the pacing. And this was my biggest issue, was the pacing was too fast, and now the pacing is just about right. You just have like this perfect rate of fan fiction pacing that I absolutely adore, and I think that it is phenomenal. And the plot is developing at such a healthy rate. It doesn't feel too rushed. It doesn't feel too slow. You're finally getting some others involved with things. It sounds as though you're going to have a couple of characters come back that we've kind of been waiting for. And, it's just conflict abroad is about to hit in there. It's kind of Yang meets up with some old friends. Might not view her so friendly because she walked out on them. And it's just waiting on just everything to explode is just my favorite part about this, is I'm just waiting on everything to explode. It's so good. Moving on, though, to the cons area of things, I think there is something that I feel as though is being set up, and I'm not going to say what it is. I will say this. Scott McKilveen, who makes the intro for these videos, agrees with me on this. He said it first because he finished reading it first, but absolutely agree with him. And I won't say what it is, but what I will say is this. It's being hinted at a fair amount. And if it does wind up happening, what is being hinted at? This is like the most cryptic damn thing ever. If it does wind up happening, I'm going to be disappointed. I'm going to be severely disappointed. So, I have to cover future fears because, hey, it's a fan fiction story. It's not over yet. I'm not done reading it. It's being set up, though. It feels as though it's being set up. And, I'm kind of not overly excited about it. The other issue that I have with this story is probably, I said that the pacing was good. The pacing of the story is very, very good, but I kind of left one omission out. The conflict between main characters is awesome between them, But the villain part to it, after how heavily they were involved in the last story, not having them involved as much as, or having them involved only as much as they are, where, albeit they are the main reason for the chase, but, I mean, or Torchwick is, but, you know, you don't really have, like, this, but it's taking too long to really kind of get him involved into the mix of things, into the thick of things a little bit more. And I just want, there to be a faster, I just want him to be more involved with the story. And I want so badly for him to get more involved. And that's personal preference. I think that, you know, kind of, unfortunately, one of the things to this episode is the fact that technicality wise and pacing wise, there isn't much that I can really say about these stories. But, you know, there's a lot, there is still pieces missing from the story, I think. I think that as much of an improvement as it is, I am still waiting on the external conflict and the internal conflict to be balanced out. In the last story, it was too much in one direction. In this story, it's too much in the other direction. So I'm waiting on, like, just, I want to see this kind of a balance. So for right now, though, where it was before and where it is now, I'd say 9.3, I guess, is where I'd wind up going with it. I can't put it up to 9.5, but 9.3. This is an amazing improvement from story 1 to story 2, and I think that anybody that reads it will understand that. So it gets most improved, honestly. I think it gets improvement in the video, and with that, I think that you should read, you know, both of the stories in the series over the others, because although Vale is very consistent all the way through, this is such a massive improvement. It makes me happy that, you know, you were able to get such a good improvement. And, you know, that's kind of why I wanted to do this, was after reading these stories, after reading the sequels, I wanted to mention them from the standpoint of improvements. And with that, it's going to conclude the video. So if you have any questions for Elf and Lied, please leave them in the comments below. If you have any future ideas for stories, leave them in the comments. If you have whatever, if you just want to say anything, comment on this video. I'm not getting a ton of comments apart from to argue with me about over what I said about stories and whether or not it was justified. I understand that, but, you know, future ideas. I'm still looking for future ideas. You know, although I have a lot, eventually I'll run out. So leave them, but most importantly, get questions for Elf and Lied. And that is going to conclude this video. So, dramatic entrance into the real world. I'll see you next time. Bye!